In a town 58,000 strong, there moved a foreigner. He was a Jewish man from the ocean. Yet, he traveled to a land with no water to find a new life. He arrived upon plains so big, you could only call it the middle of nowhere. Now, live from a land so vast, this is his cast.
Okay, well, Chief Cheney, thank you for joining us on
You
the Middle
bet.
of Nowhere cast.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I have been told I join you at the beginning of National Police Week.
Yes.
Okay. What's going on at the department for that? What does that mean to you guys?
National Police Week is, Peace Officer Memorial Day is the 15th of every May. And so what we do internally is we have what's called a block party. So tomorrow night we're going to have a block party at David Street Station, where command staff for us is from myself down to the lieutenants. We will be serving food. We provide the food to the community. Generally it's hot dogs, hamburgers, and some other kind of fun events for the kids. If you look inside there in our little kind of command suite, we have boxes of swag for the kids and family members, things like that. So we try to get the community together and give back to them the way they give to us.
Cool. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to make sure I touched on that because I was told about it. So
No, I
I don't
appreciate
know.
that. This is the first year that typically we've done it right out here in front of the police department, but we reached out to our other agencies around us. So Evansville, Mills, the Sheriff's Department, Wyoming Highway Patrol. So they're all going to join us up there, and it's going to be in my mind, it's going to be a great event. So we have all of our sister agencies going to join us this year and just make it a big.
Right on. Just for kids, or can I come too and get a
No,
hot dog?
adults come. Yeah, come on in.
Oh, okay, sick.
Yeah.
I'll see. Yeah, I don't know. You probably won't want to see me by the time tomorrow rolls around. But
Well, we'll see how this goes.
I don't know. Well, so, okay, just for people that don't know, because I have a lot of listeners in Casper, but also around the country, where are we? Like, what's Casper's deal? Who are you? What capacity? Like, just, talk a little bit about yourself and the department.
We're in Casper, Wyoming, which is the central of the state. How's that? We're at the Casper Police Department.
Sick, okay.
My name is Shane Cheney. I'm a Casper native, born and raised. Left for a little bit and doing a military piece, trying to grow up a little bit because I didn't know what I wanted to do. College didn't take. Came back and felt like this was a calling after serving in the military. Applied, started out in a little town east of here called Evansville, spent some time there.
Of course.
Cut my teeth in this profession and then came here in 2000 and I've been here since.
Wow, so you've been a cop for a while.
Yes, sir.
Wow, okay, cool. And then you found yourself now in this interim role as chief, right?
Correct, yes, sir.
So how's it been so far? How long have you been in this role, and what is it like being a chief of police?
Well, prior to this, I was the deputy chief, so the only thing that's changed is a few more meetings. Hasn't been bad, really. I think it's been good. I'm a little busier, but I like being busy. I've got to branch out a little bit and again, coordinate with some community partners and other things that I didn't necessarily do as a deputy chief. So not because I couldn't do it, it's a different role. So this provides for a better opportunity to get out and meet and greet people.
Like me.
Yeah,
Lucky
exactly,
me.
just like you, yeah.
Okay, cool. You've seen Spider-Man, I assume.
I have. Well, which one though?
Original.
Yeah, I have.
Big Ben, Uncle Ben kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question I want to ask you, with great power comes responsibility.
Correct.
You're a powerful guy.
I don't know if I am.
Chief of police?
Yeah.
I don't know. At least your office is. We could say that for
Maybe.
fair.
Yeah, maybe.
How do you deal with that? Like you know what I mean? Like that's like I feel like if I was in your seat, it'd be like, whoa.
I think the responsibility thing is, it goes both ways. Certainly with great power, or with power becomes responsibility, but I think you have to put the responsibility piece first. I don't never look at myself as the folks downstairs or the officers that go out and do the daily grind. I've been one of them, although it's been a long, long time. In the role that I'm in, I think that I work for them, and it's my responsibility to, one, take care of them, make sure that we have the equipment they need, make sure that any wellness pieces that they might need to make their days better is taken care of, and then certainly I have responsibilities to the city manager, city council, and to the community at large, and address those as quickly, as timely as possible, and not wait for them. Try to be anticipatory in some of those requests.
Okay.
Or
cool.
demands.
Can we talk about your uniform for a second?
Sure.
It always seems like you guys are uncomfortable in those things.
Sometimes.
Like in the summer, I'm like, that looks way too hot. I
Right.
couldn't imagine. And then in the winter, I'm like, how are they not cold? They don't have enough jackets on.
Yeah.
Like, why? What can we do about that?
Can't really do anything about it. It's nature of the beast. So you have an external carrier. All the officers have an external carrier now. That the nice thing about that is it breathes a little more. It takes some of the weight off your hips.
Well, external carrier, that's like the big vest they wear with all the pouches and stuff?
Yeah. So
Okay, cool.
for the first 20 years of my career, everything you had you look just like this, only you had everything on your waist. Some folks are, they have more real estate on their waist than some others. And so these external carriers actually afford for you to take some of that weight off your hips and put it up here, and you're carrying it on your shoulders instead of carrying it on your waist. And we have moisture wicking shirts underneath those, so they don't look like this. They're kind of like the Under Armour shirts, and so they are a little bit cooler. You can take it off much easier than you used to be able to do. So you used to have to take this off, take your gun belt off. You can still have your gun belt on with the external carrier. And be a little more comfortable if you're downstairs doing your paperwork. We don't do that in the car. You have to keep all your stuff on. But if you're coming down to do some lengthy paperwork or something like that in the safety of the department, you can take your external carrier off and cool off.
What percentage of your job do you think is paperwork? Or yours or like a regular officer? Because they have to, like, anytime they contact anybody, right? It's
Now that we have body-worn cameras, sometimes the body-worn camera footage can be used as your report, depending on as long as you didn't take any enforcement action. So if it's an incident versus a criminal action, if it's a criminal action, you're going to have to do some kind of paperwork on it. Now we type things up. When I first started, we hand wrote everything, and so we've progressed a little bit. And then, but I'd say, it really depends on the day. A lot of it can be self-generated. If you go out and you're a self-driven individual and you go out and do a lot of work, you're going to do a lot of paperwork. If you may pick up a terrible call, could be a bad car crash, just and that could tie you up all day where that's the only report you do, depending on you might have to do a search warrant for the vehicle to get the black box inside the vehicle to find out if there was
they
any
have
car.
this? I thought that was just an airplane thing.
No, they have it. All the new cars have kind of like a black box is the best way you can call it. The onboard computer, where you can download that and find out where they were braking, how fast they were going, all of those things.
Oh, wow.
But we have to do a search warrant for that. So depending on the nature of those crashes, if we use that as an example, some of our accident investigators may be authoring a search warrant that day, but the officer may be tied up on that particular call, going to the hospital to see what the extent of the injuries are, if people are injured in there. But that could be an all-day call depending on it.
Whoa. And do they have time to do that? Like if they're dealing with an accident, they don't just they get back in their cars and they come here and they deal with it first and then go back out, or do they how does that work?
If you're the one responsible for it, you try to tie up all loose ends before the next day, because eventually it snowballs and then you're so far behind on all of these.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it does.
Although we have accident investigators that come out on critical scenes for those type deals, the individual officer that's the primary on scene generally has to take care of all these little pieces first.
Yeah.
The accident investigator might help author the search warrant to get the information from the onboard computers in the car, and they'll work together to kind of figure out and recreate what took place.
That's a little Big Brother feeling, though, doesn't it? That like all the stuff you said you can get from a car. I mean, where do you draw the line of like, okay, this is an invasion of privacy? It might help us solve a crime if we have cameras on every single square inch of the city, but like, is that really the world we want to live in?
Well, we are living in it.
Oh, so I had no choice, I guess, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you've been how old are you?
26.
And so you've grown up under the camera, right?
Yeah.
And every time you go to a bank, anytime you go to a convenience store, all of these things. So it's technology drives the world at this point. So you just got to get along with it and figure out a way to navigate it.
I guess so. I don't know.
So we don't necessarily on every accident. I want to make it seem like we have to write a search warrant. It has to be approved by the judge. So it's not like every crash requires that. That's an extreme situation where people are injured severely, where we want to get all the information available to us as possible, because a lot of cars now have anti-braking systems, so you can't you can't always get a good speed factor if it's slow in braking. And so these things kind of help tell a better tale. If you can get all that information, you can paint a better picture of what actually transpired when the accident happened.
It's hard because it seems worth it if me or my family member was in like a horrible accident like that. I'd want to know exactly what goes on.
You'd want answers.
Exactly.
And
but
if we cut corners, you'd be upset.
I'm reminded of, I don't know if it was the Ben Franklin quote or something about like do you know which one I'm talking about? About like the justice and like those who give up freedoms for justice get neither or something like that?
Yeah.
Where's the line? I don't know. Not that you're in any better position to answer that than I am, but we're here and talking. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I think if you're going to do something right by the people that are affected by that tragedy, you have to kick over every rock possible to get the right answers. So,
Right on.
it's an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the stuff you deal with is an unfortunate circumstance. How do you and your officers deal with that? Because, like, you know, EMS comes, they're saving somebody. Fire comes, they're saving your home. Cops come, usually it's not great news for you.
That's not.
Or is that not true?
Well, we just don't always put that out. But we have officers that, if somebody's overdosing, they provide Narcan to them, things like that. So we save people, all the time, depending on. And you could save somebody by just a social interaction. It doesn't necessarily have to be through medical intervention or something like that. You could just be just a kind word can change the trajectory of somebody's bad day, right? So.
Yeah. I have to say, I've interacted with your officers on 2 different occasions, and both times they were lovely. So
They're good people.
yeah, they are. They seem like they're just regular people, and they're wearing. I don't want to be disrespectful to call it a costume, but they have a front, they have a job to do. But
Right.
I can tell talking to your officers that there's real people, there's a face behind it.
I appreciate
and
that.
I've lived in I've only lived in big cities besides this: Los Angeles, Boston, and Philadelphia, and I don't get that vibe from the other officers I've talked to. So I got to give you credit there.
Well,
Good
thank
job.
you.
Yes.
No, they're good people.
And I also want to give you other credit and give you a chance to take credit for yourself. I Googled in preparation for this interview crime statistics, Casper, and the first thing that came up, the first 5 links that came up were safest cities in the United States. Casper was number 2 on every single one of those lists. Do you want to take a little bit of credit for that and talk about why you
I
think
can't
this
take
is...
credit for that. That's the men and women downstairs doing. They're out there.
So why do you think that is? Why is this such a safe place?
I would say part of that's the community, right? The community, we have a great relationship with the community, and you can't have one without the other. So we have to be allowed to police the community, but the community has to allow us to police, and I just think we have a great relationship and great support from the community. But I also think that the officers, the guys and gals downstairs who do the work of serving and protecting, understand what needs to be done to impact that and make this place a safer city.
I mean, I feel like often, but not always, public perception is not in alignment with the facts. I know a couple years ago, nationwide, it seemed like public relations with police officers was at an all-time low.
Correct.
And it seems like you guys have actually started to rebound, and it doesn't seem as bad as it is. It seems like we're getting better and better. So I wanted to know from your perspective, do you think it's getting better? And did you guys do anything specifically to help it get there? Like, what have you done? What are you currently doing to keep improving those relationships back?
Well, I think the thing that we do is just like you said, you've interacted with a couple of our officers and they were professional, kind, and I think that's what they do every day when they show up. They don't carry a grudge. They're not upset. They come out and work, and they understand that your bad day may be the only time you've ever interacted with an officer in your entire life. But you decided you need to have some kind of officer intervention that day, and they try to get to the bottom of it and resolve that as best they can. So, again, I think we're in a unique position in Casper that, by and large, the community supports what we're doing, and we get the benefit of that as we can police this community and get things taken care of to make everybody feel safe and comfortable.
When do you think it was so bad?
The public perception?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've been policing long, like you said, but started when on the tail end of Rodney King, and then that swung the pendulum back one way, and then we had Michael Brown and George Floyd and some of these, and so the pendulum for us always goes this one way or the other, and there's always somebody, unfortunately, in our profession that puts us in a bad light, and I don't know that that's ever going to go away. It's unfortunate. And I don't want to chalk it up to a bad apple. There's just always some jerk in our profession that shouldn't be in the profession, whether it's a failed background, it's a failed, somebody on their team didn't catch them in the bat, hey, I knew that this guy was running off the rails but didn't intervene. And I don't know that we're ever going to get out of that. But there's oftentimes you're just under a lot of scrutiny. So something that happens in New York City is going to impact us. It just may take a little time. But we are insulated somewhat because we are, we're not overly populated here.
Yes.
Again, most everybody in Wyoming is law enforcement positive. You know, they're pro
Yeah.
law enforcement, so
Do you think that
helps.
works to your-
I think that does help to our advantage. Certainly didn't help with our staffing because people just didn't want to be a police officer because there were some folks in this community that and the surrounding communities that don't like law enforcement for whatever reason. We're not going to have 100. You know.
Can you understand why people might not?
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. What do you think pros and cons are of policing such a small community versus a bigger city like Los Angeles?
I think the pros for us here in this community is we know who the bad actors are. We know generally where, if they have 10 places to go, we know those 10 places where they're going to go.
That's interesting. Butches.
Huh?
Butches.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard things. I don't know.
Where in a larger community, you're dealing with. You bring up Philadelphia, and a lot of times they can't go to the smaller calls or the ones that just seem innocuous, right? They don't have the ability to go, so they're dealing with all those higher level, high priority calls day in and day out, and they're not able to go do the focus on the community policing. We still respond to most of the calls in the community. We do have an option where an individual that calls could do an online report because maybe they just want the report noted for insurance purposes and they don't really want to see a police officer. But we still go to the telephone ordinances. We still go to the shopliftings. We still go to the trespassings. And I don't think some of those larger communities can do that with regularity like we're able to do. And I do think that helps us.
Probably, because then you don't just show up when you're really, really in trouble or something horrible is going on. I know. I used to when I lived in LA, I got robbed. And the guy was in my house, and I was on the phone with the dispatcher, and they said, sorry, we don't have anybody to send to that right now.
Yeah.
I said, the guy's in my house.
Yeah.
He's like, he's taking stuff. I'm watching him take stuff right now. And she said, we're on a 3-star lockdown. Can't send anybody. I said, is this GTA? What is going? 3 stars. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I have a question about some reporting that often comes out of the police department.
Okay.
When I'm reading crime reports or arrest logs or something, it says the victim had an apparent gunshot wound.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, were they shot or not? How is it apparent?
Well, we're not pathologists or doctors, so.
But like, if somebody gets shot, they got shot, right?
Well,
I'm not like,
you still have to have the finite detail from somebody else. You don't want to call it what it is. It could be something completely different. So it looks like this, but
what else could it be?
You still have to investigate the case to its fullest, and have the people that are responsible for, that have the education to call those things. No, I mean that's.
I guess, but I don't know. I just, if somebody got shot, like they got shot.
Fair.
Or okay, okay. So that was my easy light question into the segue of talking about gun violence.
Okay.
It seems to me that gun violence has been increasing in Casper. So I just wanted to ask you, since we're here, if that's been the case, or maybe I have a bad perception of what's been going on, especially amongst juveniles. Why do you think that increase has happened, if it has?
I would say that our violent juvenile crime there is an uptick to that, but I also think that we're dealing with some issues where some of the youngsters have never had any consequences. And so you grow up now playing video games where you can point a gun at somebody and do all these things, and you get endless lives. And I'm not blaming the video game system, so please don't think that.
No.
I just think that there's certain pieces of society where these youngsters don't have the appropriate mechanisms to understand what consequences are. They get a slap on the hand, another slap on the hand, another slap on the hand, and I don't know really what the solution to that is right now when you're trying to. And there may be other things going on in the household that we need to get a better handle on as well. So.
Yeah, what can be done about it? I mean, because like on one hand, I see like police are very reactive. When something happens, they show up. But then I've also heard a lot of talk about like proactive policing and what can we do before crime happens to help mitigate it. Are you familiar with that concept? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Well, I think you have to have, the approach that you're going to get people involved before the bad things happen, and we try to do that. I mean, juveniles are they're the future of society, and you want to give them an opportunity to repair them and make sure that they're in a healthy household and do all these things. And some respond very well to that, and other ones just don't.
Well, what are you supposed to do at a certain point if a kid, if the family doesn't want you there and they don't and nothing's happened?
Well, that's the unfortunate circumstance. You have some parents, unfortunately, that get their fill and they just want to walk away and they can't. And then what happens? And so what happens is there's no resources until the kid gets in trouble or the juvenile gets in trouble. But what's going on in that home, I think, is what we need to figure out how to address that. What's going on upstream? Is there something in the household that's impacting this? Maybe it's a single parent that is working 2 jobs. This youngster doesn't have anything to do. There's no social interaction. They're sitting at home by themselves, and the only social interaction they get is from somebody that's going out and creating doing bad deeds. But not every kid is bad. We don't talk about all the good kids going on. That's true. We seem to focus on this. Does it need to be addressed? Absolutely. But I think you got to come up with a holistic approach of, we as law enforcement can't just arrest ourselves out of this, because there's things in place that require, and I would argue demand, that we try to repair whatever's going on with that juvenile or the youngster to make them better and become good contributing members to society. So if that's a household issue, then we need to probably figure out how to get into the household and give that parent support and make sure the child has support, and continue to work through that so they have something tangible in their hands that this is not working, this is how we fix it, and make that family unit stronger.
What kind of tools can you use to get inside that household?
I think you could use, you could probably have the SROs, our school resource officers, not in the household in the sense of we're going to go in and stand in the kitchen and make dinner.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is leverage the resources that is available in the community to make sure that everybody has resources available to them, no matter what their financial status is. You may have somebody that's well intended and they have all the means that they need, and they still have a child that is in need for some reason, and we got to figure that out. I would like to be more proactive on the front of that. I don't know what that looks like yet, but when you find out a kid's in trouble, take the time to sit down with them and figure out what it is they need. But that's not always as easy as it sounds. It seems like, you should just be able to go grab this kid that's sitting at the park by him or herself and tell me what's ailing you and let's work through this.
Yeah.
But everybody's busy, and your problem is not always my problem, but I think
until it becomes your problem.
Until it becomes your problem.
Yeah.
So I think we got to figure out how to get everybody involved, whatever that looks like. Healthcare providers, mental health clinicians, law enforcement support, other resources available, and get people in the room that can make decisions and leverage those decisions and put something meaningful together for everybody involved. But it seems like right now, to address the youth problem, we have to wait for that youthful offender to create a problem before they're given any resources. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it's a tricky situation.
It is, because they have, and rightfully so, they have protections. You can't go into juvenile court and hear a hearing, because they do have protections, and you want to honor those things. And so, but sometimes it's difficult as humans to reach out and say, "Hey, I need some help."
Yeah.
Because you don't want to come across as you're flawed or you're broken.
Right. Yeah. That's because that makes you vulnerable.
Don't want to necessarily normalize it, but you got to, in some capacity, go, okay, there's things out here in the community that I can go to and not feel ashamed for asking for help. You may have a kid that comes from an environment that he started stealing food because his parents aren't working, not because he's a bad kid, because he's trying to feed his younger siblings. We've seen stuff like that. And then something happens to this kid because he's been stealing, so then he gets in trouble.
Yep.
So then what happens to these over, they need to eat, so then they start doing stuff, and we need to figure out how to bridge that gap and correct those deficiencies. And not just in our community, I mean, worldwide, right?
You just brought up another question I wanted to ask. How does compassion play a role in what you guys do? Like you mentioned the kid who steals to feed his family. Stealing's wrong, it needs to be punished, but that's not really what's going on there, it doesn't seem like.
So that's one of the endearing qualities about the officers here at the Casper Police Department. I can tell you routinely an officer is digging into their pocket to pay for something for somebody. We've had officers pay for hotel rooms for people that are down on their luck. We've had officers buy formula. We've had officers, there could be a mom and dad where the only thing that they want is a cigarette. And it's the choice between a cigarette and baby formula.
Oof.
And so they'll steal the baby formula so they can get their cigarettes. But that cigarette is a vice to them that they absolutely need, right? It's the thing, it is the thing that is grounding them at this moment.
Sure.
And so we have empathetic officers here that understand that piece, and they'll work with them. Let me buy. I may have to give you a citation for the shoplifting, but I'm going to go buy your cigarettes, or I'm going to buy the baby formula, or I'm going to buy the diapers, or I'm going to go buy you some groceries. And they don't ask for anything. And oftentimes we don't hear about it. What we do internally is called a most significant incident report, or an MSI or a sit rep report. And oftentimes how we hear through this is not from that individual officer. It's because a partner on their team saw that they did this, and so they shoot us an email and say, hey, do you know that such and such bought baby formula for this family because they were, and then you go in and read the call and it was a shoplifting, or maybe they were driving off from gas because they couldn't afford gas. And so that happens, a lot more than it. I'm grateful that it happens. I'm grateful that they do it under the guise of being anonymous and not ask for anything, and they go about, and there's been officers that's done it repeatedly and never asked for anything in return.
Wow. Do you guys have a fund for stuff like that?
No.
Oh, wow. So it's really just officers being good
Just
people.
an officer, just digging in their pocket.
I had no idea that they did that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, we don't try to put that,
Well, I not that they have to put it out there, but I would, that could help people and their impression of the police if you guys.
But it goes both ways, right? Like, I'm supposed to be out here impacting the community, and so do I want to, every time I do something good, hey, look what I did. Like, that's not who we hire.
No, I guess not. But I
would
from
prefer,
my public relations background is screaming, take credit for the good stuff you do.
They do take credit. And we acknowledge them internally for that. But I would argue that if they wanted acknowledgement for it, they'd put it on a Facebook post or something like that. They're doing it because they're good humans, and it's what's right in the moment.
Yeah. Well, that's so good that we're doing this now, so then that can actually finally get out there, I guess. Sick. Okay.
It's just not in our nature to go out and brag about that. And I don't mean brag, but if I was to go and say, hey, this officer bought a hotel room for an individual, they would be mortified, because that's not why they did it. They did it because their fellow human being needed a lift up. And it was the right thing to do in that moment, to get a mom or a dad and their kids off the street, get them into a hotel room.
I wish more people could see that. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think the community would take it. I know I wouldn't take it as we're bragging, we want to show off, we're good people, we're virtue signaling.
No, but then you have the other side of society that doesn't like us, is never going to like us, right?
Until they need you.
No, and sure they exist, but they're the folks that putting that out. They don't want to, our folks here don't want to be recognized for that. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
Period. And there's several people in the community that do that. You have several benefactors that do that in the community every day. So they don't put it out there on blast and say, hey, I paid for this, this, or this. They just do it because it needs to be done. They're heroes in my mind.
I would agree with that. I think, helping a starving kid or getting a homeless person off the street for the night, that's, if we all did that, that'd be the world we want to live in.
Right.
So, okay, let's lighten it up.
Okay.
I have prepared a game for us.
I'll try it.
It is called Testing the Chief.
Okay. I'm not very good at games. In fact, I don't play games very well, but we'll give it a shot.
Okay.
It's my competitive nature, so if I shut down, it's your fault.
All right. Okay, that's fine. I looked on the Casper City website and found some city ordinances.
Oops.
Okay, I'm going to give you some codes. You tell me the violation.
I'm not going to be able to do that.
Okay, we'll try. Hold on. I have...
Can I use my phone?
3, 6... No, I have 7 of them. If you can get more than half, I promise to stay out of jail for the next year.
Oh, that's no fun.
Okay, well, what do you want then?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to look at my phone, though.
All right, that's fine. Well, I'll give you about... Well, if you look at your phone, then you just look up the answers.
I know. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you know... All right, I'll give you the title first. Title 10.
Title 10. Go ahead.
Do you know what 10.18 is?
It's something to do with traffic.
It is?
Yeah.
Yes. Safety belt usage.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. 10.24.
10.24, it's still traffic.
This should be an easy one. It's pretty common, I would think.
Is it speeding?
Yes, it is. Hey, there you go. Okay, 1 for 1. See? All right, you're already halfway. Okay, wait. Can we talk about speeding tickets too?
Yeah.
What's the deal with those? Like, it feels like that's one of the places where you guys have the most amount of discretion. Like, what's really the difference between 5 over, 10 over, 15 over, 20 over?
A lot.
And why is it that, let's say I'm going 15 over, and then the officer comes back to my car, he says, I'm cutting you a break, I only wrote you for 9 over. What's he doing there?
He's cutting you a break because you get to a certain threshold and your ticket goes, the fee or the fine goes up exponentially the higher you're speeding. So anything over 10 miles an hour is pretty significant when it comes to fines.
Oh, okay.
So
What about driving around town? Is there like a general rule of thumb that people should use? Obviously, follow the speed limits first. But is it like, if you're 37 and a 35, is that a huge issue? Like,
it depends on the officer. Speeding.
That's a very police chief answer, I gotta say. No, I hear you there. But I've also heard Highway Patrol, different department, they
Sure.
say keep it to 9 over and you're good.
Yeah, but you're on the interstate,
True.
right?
I mean, if you're in a residential neighborhood, I get it. But I also, to give you guys credit, again, Evansville and Mills, I get complaints all the time that their officers are 21 and a 20, lights on. That, I have never heard anybody complain that happens in Casper. So, one, good job, I guess.
Yeah.
But two, like, is it like, if you're on 12th Street and you're going 45, you're getting pulled over, no doubt.
Yeah,
Nobody
there's an
should be
officer,
doing
you're probably
that.
going to get pulled over.
If people routinely go 35, 36, 37.
So I will tell you, in all of your classes, there's a sine and cosine, and the part of the radar cone or LiDAR cone. There's always a plus or minus variable. So typically, an officer, before they stop you, it's going to create an audible tone, and you're going to know that somebody's in excess of that 10 mile an hour threshold.
And that's what the officer set.
Well, it could be the individual. I mean,
Or the machine
anything
is
over a
set.
certain. If you're 33, you're still speeding, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Technically.
reasonable. We don't need probable cause. We just need reasonable suspicion to stop you. So if you're speeding, you're speeding. So I don't want to give everybody a pass to speeding, but it is an individual discretion on what they choose to pull you over for. So
Okay. Right on. You're very, very, very. I'm interviewing a police chief, and I can tell. I think 10.52. What do you got?
still traffic.
It is DUI.
Okay.
Okay, I have
Normally we use 10.04.010,
Oh.
which allows us to adopt state statutes when it comes to certain offenses. So
okay.
31.5.233 is DUI, so on and so
Got
forth.
it. So you're not using the city code for DUI.
It depends on most of the time we use the state statute for that. We've
Okay.
adopted those state statutes.
Got it.
Through
see.
that municipal
Well,
ordinance.
Testing the chief, my answer was wrong, and I had it written down.
No, you're good.
Okay, well, all right, question about the DUI, the way it was written. It says that no person shall drive with, this is quote, intoxicating liquor,
Yeah.
as opposed to the non-intoxicating liquor?
Yeah.
What would be non-intoxicating liquor?
Well, there's alcohol-free liquor.
Is that even liquor, though? I thought the liquor is the stuff that gets you drunk.
It's you got to have language in there that kind of spells out the elements of the crime. So it could be.
But that's. I guess this is on the same page as my apparent gunshot wound. Like if a
Right.
guy's shot, he's shot. If he drunk liquor, of course it's intoxicating.
Could be. You never know. Some people have a different threshold to it.
I guess so. Okay, yeah, no, all right, fair enough. So that means if you're drinking liquor and you're not intoxicated for whatever reason, but then see that's unsatisfying because that makes it feel like the law is saying there's some people that can drink and not be drunk.
No, but you could have a medical event such as diabetes, and if you're going through what do you want to call it, diabetic shock or something like that, your breath may come across as you've consumed something with alcohol in it.
Just want to give you a heads up, you've got 5 minutes before your next meeting.
Oh, we got 5 minutes. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff then.
Sure.
Stop playing around. Okay, you ready for some hard questions, rapid fire?
Sure.
Okay, how do you justify or rationalize an imperfect justice system where mistakes happen and innocent people can be locked away, hurt, or even killed?
How do I justify that?
Yes.
I don't know that you can justify that. I think you wake up we live in a world of human dynamic, and no one is above a mistake. I believe no one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go create a problem just to create a problem.
I agree. Unless, hopefully,
Yeah.
not.
So I think that if you were to look back, you could probably go a generation without, and some people may say you're full of beans, maybe worse. But if we went a generation without doctors, society would survive. Would you agree?
If we went back a generation without...
If we went a generation from here forward and we didn't
Yeah.
have any more doctors, would society progress?
Yeah, not as much.
No, but we would...
We'd figure it out.
We'd get for it. Same thing for, say, dentists. But if you went a generation without law enforcement, what would happen to society?
Bad stuff, probably.
So I think, again, that's how I would
Is it
answer.
worth? So it's worth the couple people that fall through the cracks? For
I don't
the
think
overall good?
anybody should fall through the cracks. I think I think it's our responsibility from where we're at enforcing those laws to make sure that we've done our due diligence, our best job. to
All
make
you can do is your best.
All you can do is your best. And if you find something that's exculpatory evidence in that particular case that may lend to the credibility that individual is innocent of that crime, it's our obligation to tell people, hey, we messed up, and own it, and not run from it or not a comment. This is the areas that we messed up, and this is the plan moving forward, so we make sure that we don't have any more of these terrible mistakes. But
Learn, get better, admit to your mistake. And
yeah,
then-
but that unfortunately, I think in society we're always going to have that. I don't like it. I don't like watching the shows as a police officer with 30-some years and watch the Innocence Projects, somebody that's spent 3 decades in prison and for something they didn't do because they've exhausted their it's mortifying to me to sit and watch that because that poor soul's been in prison. His family's missed out on him, or her family's missed out on them, and they've been claiming their innocence the whole time. It was like nope, 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 and then DNA comes out, and I think DNA is great. It's a great tool, but how many people have been exonerated? How many poor souls were executed?
Yeah.
Before DNA,
Right.
And so I do think that's a stain on the the American judicial system. We have to get better, and I think we have to hold each other. I don't want to say we should be creating accountable people in our society, not hold people accountable, but have a society and a culture that we're creating accountable people. That
Yeah.
we don't want to have this happen again. We don't want to do this again. How can we prevent that when you have there's no way around human error? But I don't think people do it intentionally or maliciously all the time.
So I have one more question I want to ask on that, but I'm scared we're going to run out of time. So I want to ask you, how would you feel about decriminalizing weed in Casper?
There is nothing you could say or do to me that I would decriminalize. I don't go to the calls, and our officers don't go to the calls where it's the kids sitting in the basement smoking weed unless something terrible has happened and they've shot somebody with a firearm, right? That's the stuff I go to.
Right, okay.
I've also been to houses where there's a young girl walking through the door. She's so happy to see police officers. There's her parent or guardian at the time is completely baked out of their gourd. She's walking around in the house covered in dog feces, barefoot, pink eye. And so there's nothing that you can tell me.
I'm not talking about that.
No, but
right.
there is, because even if you legalize it, you're still going to have those parts of society that can't afford to get it legally, and they're going to do whatever they can to get it. So they're still going to prey on the community. And so there's nothing based on what I've seen in my 30 years that I would advocate for legalizing it. I've seen terrible car crashes. I've seen terrible loss of life because of that. And so I don't know that I would ever advocate for it. While I know that in certain circles or certain areas they say, hey, maybe it's going to help this cancer patient, and I would empathize with that cancer patient. But that's not the calls I've gone to.
Right.
I don't get called when, hey, I'm giving this youngster an edible because they're in so much pain they can't handle it. I don't see that, and our officers don't see that. We see the human tragedy behind that, if that makes sense.
But it does make sense. That's a good
and
answer.
I have a lot of things locked up that that I would never advocate for that. While I understand people want to advocate for it, I would never be the guy that stands up there and say, yes, we should legalize it because of the things I've experienced.
But if those people that you just described, I feel like they're doing it if it's illegal or legal. Like what my argument for why it might be a good idea, and not even to legalize it, but just say if you're a dude getting high, want to go for a walk in Morad, like, what's the big deal? You know what I mean?
We
Like,
don't
you're
get
not-
called to you, right?
Oh, I get. Well, yeah, I
Unless
guess
you're
so.
doing something silly, and
So
like
you're
you decide
saying
to-
like people are pretty. You're not saying smoke weed. You're not saying
I'm not
it's
saying
not a
smoke
problem.
weed. I'm not saying.
But
yeah.
you're saying you only see it in adjacent to other bad things,
Yeah,
and that's
we don't-
when it needs
yeah,
to be dealt
yeah,
with.
Yeah, we see it on that side that requires enforcement or requires, to your point earlier, we react to these things. So we get called to the unfortunate circumstance that somebody lost a life, to the unfortunate circumstance that these kids don't have anything to eat because mom and dad spent money on X, Y, and Z. They're living in squalor. So I have 30 plus years of those kind of memories. So I would never advocate for the legalization of it because of the things I've seen. Doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent.
Sure.
That's just my stance.
Sure.
So I can't advocate for it because of that. So
Fair enough. All right. Well, I just wanted to ask. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
no.
ask. I'm a former California boy here, so
Yeah,
I just,
yeah.
you know.
it's fair. It's a fair question, but
I don't know if we have time. I wanted to know if you could give me a field sobriety test because I've always been curious to see if I could pass them. Because I watching cops, I'm always like, I don't think I could do that sober.
I'm sure you could. Next time I'll show you one.
Okay, cool. All right. I guess I don't want to keep you. You've been generous with your time. Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much
it, yeah.
for coming on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks
Sweet.
for having me.
All right, Chief Cheney, everybody, call us. Again, don't call us. If you need them, call them.
Yeah.